Erbil in the heart of Kurdistan in northern Iraq. In this Muslim-majority city, there are more than 100,000 Christians living. Most of them live in the Ain Qala district. 2 out of 3 inhabitants have fled Daesh. Here, they can express their faith without fear. Today, the neighborhood is bustling. Rafed, a young Catholic, is getting married. He comes to look for his future wife himself. In the traditions of the Middle East, you can see the bride before the church when we go look for her at her dad's house. Inside, her loved ones pulled out their best outfits. As is the custom, they are going to welcome the groom with a headscarf decorated with pearls and bells.
We're going to dance with these handkerchiefs. They are reserved for the husband's relatives.
The handkerchiefs are waved to the sound of uyas. This is the same in Muslim marriages. In the Ain Qala district, there are at least 5 weddings weekly. Future spouses like Rafid, 32, and Aaron, 25, never live under the same roof until D-Day. Their path to the church is therefore quite a symbol.
بعد اصحاب
كان مصور غدا
لا كامل مصور يلا.
The priests of the East do not know the vocations crisis. This Saturday afternoon, there were no less than 8 monks who gathered to celebrate Rafed and Aaron's wedding. Mass begins immediately with the exchange of consents.
هل تريد يا ابننا رافد أن تكون زوجاً لابنتنا آرين الماثلة أمامنا بحسب الشريعة الإنجيلية وقوانين الكنيسة المقدسة؟
أيوة.
Part of the Mass is celebrated in Aramaic. This 3,000-year-old language is the one that Jesus Christ spoke. It is still the native language of Christians in Iraq. The ceremony continues with the exchange of rings. All Christian rites are respected. We, the Christians of the East, are proud to come and get married in church so that she may bless our union. After church, an ancient custom awaits the bride and groom, a ritual common to Christians and Muslims in Iraq. They must walk in the blood of this sheep who has just been slaughtered. This sacrifice is supposed to place the spouses under the protection of God. Then the party starts with a DJ, cake and champagne. Rafed and Aaron's families are all refugees, are not very rich. However, they raised more than 10,000 euros for the marriage of their children. The couple will then spend the evening on a stage, then receive the wishes of more than 100 guests.
Hi.
Rafed's father is also congratulated. Despite the party, he does not forget his hometown. Karakosh, 50 kilometers away. More than 2 years ago, he and his family had to flee upon the arrival of Daesh.
Christ is in our heart. We think of him. We think of God. I am thinking especially of this innocent generation. I cannot describe the violence suffered, nor the despair of exile that we are currently experiencing.
Rafed and Aaron are now going to start living together in Erbil. They hope to be able to return home one day. Eastern Christians were among the first Christians in the world. They appeared 6 centuries before Islam in Palestine. With Jesus Christ, during the 1st century, Christianity was spread thanks to the apostles. St. Paul spread it throughout the Mediterranean. St. Peter founded the first church in Antioch, in southern Turkey. St. Thomas takes the direction of India to evangelize the territories he will cross. Monasteries, churches, convents. In these regions, their history can be found everywhere. At the start of the 20th century, 1 in 4 inhabitants of the Middle East was a Christian. Today, there are only 1 in 30 left. There are Catholics or Orthodox all over the Middle East. In Lebanon, Christians represent 40% of the population. Copts represent 10% of Egyptians. In these lands where the most practiced religion in the world was born, with 2 billion followers. The presence is more threatened than ever. Murder of clerics, attack on churches. In Iraq, over 10 years, more than 1,000 Christians have been killed. Around 60 religious buildings were attacked. Since 2013, the biggest threat has been called the Islamic State. In just 2 years, Daesh has conquered several Christian areas between Iraq and Syria. In cities and villages under the yoke of Islamists, the jihadists are forcing Christians to convert. If they refuse, they become sub-citizens called dhimmis, without being able to practice their religion freely. They also have to pay tax. In this video shot in Libya, the terrorist group is coldly murdering 28 Christians, a message to those who would be tempted to resist. Most have therefore chosen to flee in order to start a new life, far away from persecutions. Naram, her husband, and their 2 children decided to leave everything to start their lives over again in France. It is impossible to imagine going back to live in Mosul.
I am sad to leave my parents and loved ones.
Others chose to stay in northern Iraq. With the reconquest of territories by the regular army, inhabitants returned to their village, for a time, threatened by Daesh. This return makes it possible to ensure the survival of these Christian areas' ancestral buildings. Above all, Christians want to remain in the Middle East.
People are attached to this land. Their ancestors have been there for 16 centuries.
So, some decided to take up arms to defend themselves. They grouped themselves into militias. In Iraq, one of the largest numbers has 400 men. On the other side of the border in Syria, Christians are also at risk. In Aleppo, there were 160,000 before the war. Today, no more than 40,000 left. Those who remain are appalled.
They destroyed culture, it destroyed man. You don't uproot people. It's unacceptable.
Portrait of these Eastern Christians who are fighting for survival. At the end of this Iraqi road, in less than 20 kilometers, there is Mosul and Daesh. In this car, an Orthodox Syriac priest and a bishop. They are escorted by a parishioner, Rabi. They have been coming home for 2 years. They lived in Bartella, a town that was 100% Christian, freed from the jihadists barely 48 hours ago. Rabi and the priests are going to pick up some stuff from the parish, in case the Islamic State regains ground. They don't know what to expect. At the entrance to Bartella, Iraqi special forces are everywhere. At the first checkpoint, priests are ordered to get out of the car. Not for a check. Iraqi soldiers are surprised to see men in cassocks. However, there are nearly 500,000 Christians in Iraq. These soldiers are all Muslims. They risked their lives to free Bartella, a Christian town, like many others on the road to Mosul.
Are you continuing the fight towards Karakosh now?
Yes, with God's help.
Sure, there's no doubt about it.
Surely you will win with the help of God.
During our filming, the fighting is still going on to take over Karakosh, the country's major Christian city, located a few kilometers away. Rabi and the priests have as their safety instructions not to go too far into the city.
Now it says it's a trap.
But to be careful because it's not cleaning.
Daesh has mined the buildings.
The Daesh used this bombing because to be late the government army to be late to be free of the area.
The men of the Islamic State are not far away. Less than 2 kilometers away.
It was very close.
Very, very. We can't to go on this street because there is bombing here. It's not cleaning. Maybe there is someone inside of the house. We have a gun to be shot it.
In this ghost town, the slightest noise becomes suspicious.
What is it?
Yeah.
A wind in a metal curtain is enough to startle Rabi. The inhabitants of Bartella fled within a few hours when the Islamic State group invaded the city in August 2014.
This is the jobs of the Daesh, to burn everything, to destroy everything. It's like a disease. He is like a cancer.
It's not just businesses that are in ruins. Above all, the state's targets were Father Dowd's church. Icons have been destroyed. The head of this statue of an Orthodox patriarch has been ripped off. The representation of Jesus and the apostles slashed on the faces. For the terrorist group, it's about destroying the past and religious symbols other than their radical vision. Daesh went so far as to desecrate the graves in the cemetery. A few minutes later, the Iraqi army, for fear of renewed fighting with Daesh, asked Rabi and the other parishioners to hurry up. Priests have just little time to gather as many objects as possible. Inside his church, Bishop Dawood discovered the extent of the destruction. Here is what is left of this book. In this chaos left by Daesh, it is a part of the Christian memory of Iraq that the parishioners are trying to save.
I am sad to see these places in such a condition. However, I am happy to have found my parish again. We are happy with the young people in the church. We came to recover the Syriac books and manuscripts.
For Father Yaqub, Daesh simply wanted to erase the religious history of the city.
They thought they would annihilate us all and be done with us by destroying churches. They thought they would exterminate us. Churches are not just these stones. We are the church, the believers, and the Christian people.
In addition to books, one of the priests finds an instrument from his choir, as well as disguises. The parishioners won't be able to take anything more with them today. Before leaving, there is one important thing for Father Yaqub: make known his presence to the enemy nearby.
To ring this bell is to show our joy after the liberation of our church. It's our heritage, our history, our reviving civilization.
Just 2 kilometers away, fighting continues to rage on the road that leads to Mosul. In the region where we are, the Nineveh Plain, since the arrival of Daesh, it's all a heritage that was brought down. The terrorist group has embarked on a project of mass destruction of anything that does not correspond to its vision of religion. When soldiers' arms are not enough to destroy, terrorists use explosives. At the entrance to the second largest city in Iraq, Mosul, this 1,700-year-old monastery was dynamited. A few kilometers away, another building from the 6th century was demolished as shown by these satellite images. The presence of Christians in Iraq, dating back to 2,000 years ago, is also translated into thousands of books that tell the story of Christianity, systematically burned by the jihadists. Somewhere in northern Iraq, a man works in the shadows to save this threatened Christian memory. It's Father Najib, a Dominican father. As a precaution, he asked us not to disclose the place where the unique documents he saved are kept.
We have to keep a little discretion to preserve this heritage that we saved from the hands of Daesh from destruction, that it doesn't fall into the hands of thieves. For example, mafia groups that are really trying to wipe out our history and steal a little of our past.
In this building, there is a treasure for Eastern Christians. Several thousand of very old books. Some are several centuries old. They are so fragile that to handle them, you have to wear gloves.
This collection is really the most damaged. It's also the most fragile we've ever had. Here, for example, it's a 13th century Bible. That is in Aramaic, the language of Jesus Christ. We brought all this in so it could be safe.
In Father Najib's house, transformed into a safe, there are pieces of history everywhere, a treasure that was almost lost. In 2014, Baba Najib was a priest in one of the churches in Mosul.
There you go, it's our library in Mosul.
In the basement lies 25 years of restoration and manuscripts, a colossal job. 4,000 books are stored there. It was at this time that Daesh entered the city. Father Najib feels the danger is coming. He decides to improvise a rescue operation. Despite the fragility of the structures, they are piled up in few hours in vans and car trunks. You have to hurry up. If members of the Islamic State fall on it, everything will be destroyed. An escape lasting several days then begins, stuck at a roadblock, threatened by the arrival of a Daesh convoy. Some books will even be carried by pedestrians. To get into a secure zone, the papers that Father Najib saved are not just Christian books.
I show you this document, which is from the 13th century, called Alfiya ibn Malik, or the 1,000 verses that explain the Quran. We protect the Christian archive, as well as those of the Muslims, the Yazidi, the Chabad, and the Turks.
Father Najib's work is far from done. Helped by several people trained in the preservation of ancient documents, the restoration of the works continues. The most important is the digitization of documents. Each page is photographed. If books were to one day ever be destroyed, something would be left. Hard work, but fundamental for Father Najib as well as the Christians of the East. Christians who fled Mosul are many who are unwilling to return one day. Many of them found refuge in Doak, at 75 kilometers to the north. As in Erbil, peace reigns in this city. Christians can practice their faith freely there. Among them is Naram, 31, and her husband Mar, 36, their 2 children, Majid, 8, and Mark, 2. All Chaldean Christians. Even here, their church is under heavy protection. Kurdish soldiers are on guard.
We guard this place all the time. We're here to defend it.
The family comes to pray there 3 times a week. Today, Naram's sister accompanies them.
You have to cover your head when you go to church like the Blessed Virgin Mary.
In the East, Christians kept wearing headscarves for a woman in a church. Today's visit is a special one for Naram and his family. It's their last prayer in their church.
After leaving Mosul, upon the arrival of Daesh, we settled here. We spent a lot of time in this church. Though we met relatives among the people who come there, we became a family. Now we have to say goodbye as we're leaving.
Naram and her family leave for France after experiencing horror. The French state issues only a few visas for war refugees. To get them, they were helped by the Iraq Christian Support Committee, a French association. This is particularly the case of Majid, the son of Naram, suffering from a serious illness that facilitated the process. The flight to France gives him chances of recovery.
وإن شاء الله هناك تلاقي أصدقائها حلوين مثلك وتلعب وياهم وتشوف غير ناس.
Over the past year, Naram's family waits to leave. The plane takes off tonight.
Here, there is everything you need for the first few days: children's clothes and ours and kitchen utensils.
Majid's best friend is a Muslim. He has a heavy heart.
What is your feeling about the departure of your friend?
Just I want him to be good and come back here.
For Naram, this new start will also allow the family to live its faith without fear.
For us, it's impossible to leave Christianity. Jesus said, "You will be expelled from your city. You will be persecuted because of my name." We will never renounce Christianity. It will remain our path all our lives.
Naram's parents and siblings are going to stay in Iraq. On the doorstep, it's time to say goodbye. Naram made the choice to leave. However, she is not sure she will ever see her loved ones again.
As a father, of course I am very worried because they are going to travel very far. However, I am happy for my grandson. Maybe he'll be able to heal.
Naram's cousin is going to drive them to the airport. Parents are enjoying these last seconds. Like Naram, 1,700 Christians from the Middle East went to France last year.
I am so sad to be away from my parents as well as my loved ones. I really don't know what to say.
In 3 hours, they will be at Erbil Airport in Iraq. Then they will get to France. We will meet them in Versailles, where they will be welcomed by the city's community. In the Mosul region were 150,000 Christians living before the war. For these areas not to be emptied forever from its inhabitants, some are fighting on the ground to help them rebuild. That is Vincent's mission. He works for L'Oeuvre d'Orient, a French NGO. He is Catholic and feels close to these communities, up to getting a cross tattooed, the symbol of these Eastern Christians.
It's to never forget why I'm here. I am here to serve these people. It is a permanent reminder of my commitment to these Christian communities in the East.
Vincent goes to the foot of the Syriac Orthodox monastery of Marmatai, a monument dating from the 4th century AD. The building is one of the oldest Christian buildings in the world, an architectural treasure. Below 4 small Christian settlements. It's there that this morning he has an appointment with priests.
Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. A good day. It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure also.
If Vincent is here today, it's for the inauguration of a new field funded by his NGO. The stadium grew in the middle of the desert, just a few kilometers from Dash.
Dash is behind this hill that we see here. We're about as the crow flies 3 kilometers away.
On the other side of this trench, it's the territory of the Islamic State. Luckily, the jihadists were stopped. In Marmatai, residents fled. The NGO and the priests convinced them to return once the front line has stabilized.
People are attached to this land. Their ancestors have been there for 16 centuries. There is a special attachment to the land among the Christians of the East, especially here in Marmatai.
In this Christian village, the mayor will not have to inaugurate the new sports equipment. It is the highest religious authority.
All the land here and beyond the hills belongs to the monastery. Here, in the east, the bishop is like the lord of the village. The clergy, the priest, the bishop is someone important, esteemed, recognized. It's normal that he's here today.
For the official photos, he's still the one who poses in the midst of the inhabitants of the village.
You are with Barcelona? Of course. I'm for Real Madrid. No, I'm French. I'm for Paris Saint-Germain.
For the occasion, religious persons join in the game. They start a match against the young people of the village. Vincent teams up with the priests.
seems to be not easy to play with
our clothes, of course.
Yeah.
We don't rest. سيدنا سيدنا.
Despite inadequate clothing, the match continued. To end with a victory for Vincent's team.
We are a blessing team. You know that all the prayer is with us. And Vincent is a very good player. And he's made the first goal.
A year ago it was sand. Now it's artificial grass. It's also full of young people. I did not expect to see many of them. When I often come, they are at work. They are all here. It is very good. That's good.
This stadium is the sum up of a year's work for Vincent.
This is it. That's where you started. Yes.
For the inhabitants to decide to stay in this remote village, so close to the front line, we then also had to find them jobs. Thanks to the support from Vincent's Association, the inhabitants were able to create this quarry to extract stone. The stone is then cut in this workshop before being resold all over the country. Thanks to this initiative, 60 jobs have been created.
We are live people, live community, that if we go to other country, just like in Europe, America, Australia, maybe with some generation, we will disappear. Our tradition, our everything we learned here, our habits also will be determined. So we keep going in our job to make the people staying here. And that's what we hope, because you know that we are staying here from thousands of years.
Every time he goes to this village, Vincent goes to the monastery to enjoy this sacred place. The life of the last monks is settled through 3 daily prayers. An opportunity for the young man to meditate as well. Before Dash attacked the Nineveh plain, Marmatan Monastery was a very popular place to live.
But we are welcoming many families at the beginning,
yes,
no?
At the beginning we have more than 65 families. All the family left the monastery when ISIS gangs attacked Nineveh plain.
This monastery welcomed up to 1,000 monks. Today there are only 7 left. They live with 12 inhabitants. Above all, there are no more pilgrims. Bring visitors back and breathe new life into this unique place is also the project of Le Louvre d'Orient. Previously, more than 10,000 people came here every year. With the closeness of the Islamic State, danger is still there.
It's a risk. A month ago, there were shells that fell near the village below. People who live there. We don't realize it because everything is calm and peaceful. Yet, it's an optical illusion. The threat is very close.
If Dash ever reached the monastery, these last inhabitants would be expelled and the premises destroyed. Our investigation continues in Erbil, where most Christians take refuge while hoping for better days. It is here that their lives resume. On the first 2 floors of this mall, dozens of small shops. They sell clothes, shoes as usual. A few floors up, Father Jello, a Catholic priest, put on his golden chasuble. He is getting ready to celebrate Mass on Sunday evening. In the hall of the 4th floor, in the absence of wooden benches, pilgrims sit on plastic chairs. All the rites are respected, starting with incense.
This smoke from the incense burner represents the prayers that we raise to the Lord. This burning incense is an offering to the Blessed Virgin.
The Sunday celebration is obviously a time of communion. Not only that, information for everyday life is also provided.
Here are this week's announcements about our community. Gradually, we will do everything so that you do not lack anything, especially with regard to elevators. Be sure that we are mindful of this point. We will try to get one fixed. If we can, we will do the same for the second one.
The corridors of this supermarket are not only turned into a church once a week. Between the third and fifth floors, it is indeed a real small village that has been established. The Rocher, as its inhabitants call it, is right in the heart of Erbil. The building is that of a wealthy Christian entrepreneur who did not want his fellows to live in tents or in camps. He offered his shopping center to his community. Its offices have been turned into apartments. Today, 1,600 people live in dwellings like Father Jel's.
This is where I live. It's not very tidy, but gradually it will get organized.
There is a second bedroom with a toilet and a bathroom. 2 rooms, a kitchen, running water and electricity. His dwelling is far from the image of refugee camps. The priest arrived just 10 days ago.
I arrived a few days ago. I didn't have time to tidy up. There are so many things to do, especially visits.
Morning and evening, Father Joel tries to make acquaintance with his new faithful.
What was seen to be temporary is gradually becoming permanent.
Most children are now attending school in the city.
She would like to go, but there is no press school here. A solution should be found to keep these children busy.
A problem that is in the process of being solved. We meet Vincent again. He visits Rabi, one of the camp leaders.
Hello. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
How are you?
What's up?
The young Frenchman is in charge of the shopping center. He comes to oversee the construction of new equipment. It is the refugees who continue to transform office floors into living spaces.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Those are the classrooms. Behind there will be a space for children. There will be games, big rugs.
In a few months, these cinder blocks will give way to a kindergarten and new dwellings.
Here, from this point, this is the apartment of the Dominican sister here.
Even more astonishing, a chapel will be built here.
This is the hall. It will be used as like a chapel from the sister Dominicans and Father Jalal's and Father Bassem.
Soon, masses will no longer be celebrated in a hall, but in a real church. An entire Christian city is being built here. To complete the construction, Vincent now needs more space in the mall. He is just from asking the rich owner, Nizar Hanna. This Iraqi Christian made a fortune in real estate.
You asked me that you want to complete the project. You want to take another places to cover.
Yes, exactly. I would like to know if you have some other buildings near Neshtiman or in front of Neshtiman, I don't know, to continue the project.
This morning, a pleasant surprise for the young man. The businessman gave him a new part of this building, which is not currently occupied.
It's another 4 floors, similar to this one, connected with the first part.
Okay, so all this area?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So here we can make a new apartments.
It can be completed, yes. We need to support the refugees. You know, from the first time that they came in, I had these flats ready, so I delivered it to them because they were in the street in that time.
Since 2014, this generous donor has offered over $10 million worth of buildings to Christian refugees in Erbil.
Really, it was a pleasure to work with Mr. Nizar. I am always impressed by the generosity of the people here.
Thank you, Mr. Nizar.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
It was nice to see you again.
The Rocher is no longer a camp where families stay hoping for a return. It's a new Christian neighborhood in the heart of the Muslim part of Erbil. A symbol. Since 2003, the number of Christians in Iraq has been divided by 3. They went from 1.5 million to just 500,000. Iraq is not the only country affected by this exodus. In Syria, there were nearly 2 million Christians in 2011. Today, there are less than 1 million. In some towns, their presence have been divided by 4. It's the case in Aleppo. The city was cut in 2 for 4 years. In the west, the forces of the Bashar al-Assad regime, as well as their Russian allies. In the east, the rebellion. It ended up losing the battle after bloody bombings, operated by the Russian Air Force. The eastern part of the city is now under control by Bashar al-Assad's troops for only 48 hours. Calm has just returned. Father George Savi, a Catholic priest, organizes an outing with Christian high school students today in the old city of Aleppo, which served as the boundary between both camps. This historic district near the souk is devastated.
It's the first time I'm back to this neighborhood. It's one of the neighborhoods I grew up in. My grandparents live nearby.
How does it feel to see it like that?
I am very excited to find that it is possible for me to return, because I had lost all hope of being able to come back one day and walk in that neighborhood.
The silence that reigns in the deserted streets is occasionally broken by the sounds of explosions in the distance.
It's nothing.
Do you seem accustomed to it?
Yes. We don't even realize it.
It's hard not to notice this kind of thing anymore.
Yes, now you have to get familiar to the calm. You have to get familiar to a different rhythm of life. Some inhabitants in exile have just returned to the neighborhood.
مرحبا. انتو ايش اسمكم؟ انتي ايش اسمك؟ سدرة. وانت ايش اسمك؟ جواد. جواد.
A few hundred meters away, behind the military checkpoints that screens access. It is a field of ruins. This is where most of the city's ancient churches were gathered.
على يميني هيك كان في سوق الصوف وكان في كنيسة للسريان الكاثوليك.
Between the mortar fire from the rebels, the bombings of the Russian army, Old Aleppo is devastated. Most buildings are not repairable.
I'm sad to see that again. This Armenian church was mine, where I went. It feels like I haven't seen her for over 4 years.
We are accustomed to seeing damage, but not to this extent. Usually, a small part is destroyed. Entirely like that, we are not used to it.
We are on Christmas Eve. Father Georges asked the young people to pick up rocks from churches in ruins.
يلي بدنا ناخذها تنقدر نستعملها ببناء المغارة تبعتنا.
Before building this nursery, Father Georges ventures a little further. He is stunned by what he sees. The religious buildings he knew were all destroyed. He accuses the rebels of being the sole responsible.
They destroyed culture and man. That's in less than 2 or 3 centuries. It's a shame. I'm not just talking about history, I am also talking about a whole tradition, about the roots. You don't uproot people. You don't uproot people. It is unacceptable.
Father Georges condemns the rebellion. He has been fighting against government troops since 2012. For those in Aleppo, the rebels are terrorists. They denounce the presence of numerous jihadi groups. Many Christians prefer to side with Bashar al-Assad, guaranteeing their safety, according to them.
Yalla.
After an hour, the teenagers and Father Georges leave the neighborhood towards a Christian school in the city where they are going to make their nursery. In this candlelit room, it is a moment of contemplation. The retaking of the city by the forces of the state gave hope to Father Georges for the future of these teenagers.
Those who have spent a good part of their childhood or adolescence. In the middle of the war, and perhaps one or the other has lost someone in the family, are now saying, we want to live. We want to build.
On Christmas Eve, the hope of Father Georges is shared by all Christians in Aleppo. The next day is December 25. Head to Farhat Square, the former boundary in the heart of the old town. In this Maronite cathedral, Father Addis is preparing Christmas Mass. It's the first time since 2011 that this festival will be celebrated there. The church was ripped open by rockets. 3/4 of its roof is on the ground. Father Addis also chose to build his nursery with the rubble of its cathedral.
It's very important. That's why we had this idea. The nursery emerges from disasters to mark our presence. In these regions, the presence of Christians is not new. It is very old. We are originally from these lands.
To ensure Mass, the parishioners use the D system. In Aleppo, electricity is still scarce. As a result, instruments are connected to a generator. They stop regularly. Father Addis and the parishioners are on their guard. They are very vigilant about security.
If necessary, the military will step in.
The security is maximum.
Is this the first time you've made it rain once more?
Yes, it's the first time. I feel joy. As the proverb goes, the bell is a mother in the valley who calls on its children.
Today, Father Addis celebrates more than just a Mass. The bishop even made the trip. It is also a tribute paid to dead Christians during 5 Years' War in Aleppo. We pray for the martyrs of the war, and especially in Aleppo. My God, let them enjoy meeting you. We pray for their families and loved ones. For the Christians of Aleppo, with this ceremony, a new life is beginning.
I cannot express how happy I am to celebrate Christmas here again. I hope that all of Syria will find peace, that every Syrian will feel the same joy as me.
I hope that the peace that we are now experiencing in Aleppo will be spread all over Syria, or even to the world.
For many Christians in Syria, this peace requires the reconquest of the country by Bashar al-Assad's army. They fear that if the dictator falls, the country will implode like Iraq in 2003. At the time, after the fall of another dictator, Saddam Hussein, persecutions against Christians have accelerated. Change of scenery. We are in Versailles, in the suburbs of Paris, on this winter Sunday morning. This is where we meet Naram. It's been 2 months since she and her family left her loved ones in Iraq. The family moved into this small apartment. With their refugee status, the couple receives social minima. There's no way to make a big living, so the parish pays the rent.
We are good as a family. This place is very beautiful. France is beautiful, thank God.
The parish also covers medical expenses linked to the serious illness of Majid, their son. The news is pretty good. Thanks to his new treatments since his arrival in France, his health has improved. This morning, parishioners from Versailles come to pick them up to go for Mass.
Bonjour. How are you?
I'm fine.
An opportunity for Naram to improve his French.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
On y va? Allez, allons-y.
Okay.
Conversations are a little complicated.
I try speak français. Un peu en anglais, un peu en français.
Emmanuel coordinates the help that the parish provides to this Iraqi family. A situation that has earned him, his wife and his children, to build relationships with Majid.
The children ask for news, really. Every day they ask me about Majid and his family. I heard Ela just now saying, "We're going to heal him, little Majid."
Since their arrival in France, Naram and her husband go to church every Sunday. Now they go for prayers without fear.
It feels safer here. In Mosul, you could not go to church normally. It was way too dangerous. There were even explosions. The situation was better in Kurdistan. Going to church was no problem. Supervision and control were very strict. Here, it's different. There is security. We go when we want. Life is normal here.
Maver and Naram are still struggling to understand the Mass.
We don't understand very well, but we learn. Gradually, it will be fine.
Do you understand anything?
It's true that it's not easy. We need to learn to speak better. We will eventually understand the meaning.
Since 2014, like Naram, Maher, and their children, 5,000 Eastern Christians have found refuge in France.